and then I'll click back to Riverside. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm super excited to be seeing you all today and talking about the concept of creating so much trust in the first call that the person that you're speaking with wants to be on a second call with you. So it's building trust in one sales call. Doesn't mean you're closing the deal in the first call. And this is really for the audience of people that are looking at their sales process and saying, why am I not closing more deals? Why are people ghosting me and I'm sending all these just following up messages? If that's at all you or people on your team, tune in today because that's what the focus is. So I'm going to show a few things today, and I'm also going to be asking questions of you about your experience, and I'll be answering them live for you. So first and foremost, I'm going to share my screen. So here we go. How are you feeling at the beginning of a sales call? Like, which of these people sometimes is who you're at? Maybe you're the kind of person that's in C2 and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to see this person and I really don't feel prepared for the call. Or you're just feeling like I've had so much coffee and I'm excited and I can't wait. And you're like B2 going, I can't believe I've got someone on the call. Well, how's the other person feeling? Like, what is it that they're bringing to the call? And sometimes you won't know if you ask the basic question, how are you doing today? You're likely to get this pleasant comment of, hey, I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. But what's really going on behind it? You won't know unless you ask a really meaningful question and then read the response. I like to start off with something like, hey, what's been remarkable for you recently? And all of a sudden, it calms down the body language and they get a chance to go, what has been remarkable for me recently? And that's great for someone that you've already talked to once before, because then they're used to your style and your tone. And style and tone are the things that you hear and see, not the things that you say exactly. Any questions on this so far about the building the feeling of trust that have come in? Okay. What is your wish as a person who's trying to connect with other people and close deals? Like, what does success really look like to you? Is it just increasing your close rate? Is it having more people show up on the second call and you're just like, wow, I want more people to be magnetized to me? Now, there could be a sales wish that you have that's related to, I just want to sell enough deals so that I can take a vacation and go somewhere. Last person I was talking to said, you know what? I really want to spend more time on Turks and Caicos and buy that condo finally. Whoa, that's something specific that they want to have happen. And unless you know what your buyer really cares about and where they want to go with that, you're missing out. So you want to figure out what the buyer's birthday wish is. Like, why did they join? And if they could write it out, hey, this is my deal, this is what I want, then you have something to work with. Otherwise, there can be this rushed process where you're too pushy and you're leaning in and you're saying, hey, welcome to the call. How's it going there? What's the weather like in Cleveland? Did any of that sound interesting or exciting to the other person? Probably not. So, what's a question that any of you out there have used as your starting question? Let's call it a icebreaker. Believe it or not, icebreakers are the most important thing to build trust and rapport, because you're asking something that shows them you care about them rather than you're just there to sell them. Sometimes selling to a human is the most difficult thing to do. So, for example, if you were to sell to one of your pets and say, hey, do you want to go on a walk? Boom. They're like, wow, you had me at lifting up the leash. But for humans, we're created differently, and we're looking at this: how do I survive today? How do I thrive today? And so when someone joins, they might be in this kind of a mood where it's like, what's going to happen? Am I going to like this person? Hopefully I won't get sold to. And how many times have you felt sold to and you've just decided to say, I want to leave. I want to leave the call, but you're almost thinking you've got their attention because they're still on the call. Here's a question that's come in. Why do people buy and not trust? And so if you could pull up the rest of the detail of that question, I really want to see that. Okay. Why do people say I trust you and still not buy? It's a fabulous question. Sometimes they might just be saying, I want to trust you. And then they sit back and they go, but this isn't a fit. So they might actually trust you, but what you're offering them isn't at all what they're looking for. So before you're even showing your product and your service, ask them, why are you here? And what is it that you want? And how do you actually create trust? How do you feel trust? Is it something where you see the details and I show you a lot of details and you're like, wow, those are the details. That's amazing. Or is the person you're talking to like really big picture? Knowing which one they're at is really important. That's a great question. Thanks for asking it. So I'll go to the next one because I think this is really important. Before I do that, the question is, how do I know when trust breaks down in a conversation? So I'm just going to shut off the slides for a minute and then get right back to the meat of this. How do I know when trust breaks down? First, you might see the person you're talking to all of a sudden look to the side or looking down or changing their body posture. That means that you've lost attention, curiosity, and they might just be stepping away from the conversation and the trust has gotten really low. If you've ever found yourself talking more than like 42 seconds or a minute or two on a call, that typically means you're crossing this invisible boundary, which is, I don't want to go on too long. But if you keep going on too long, they're going to be like doing this subconsciously, like, slow down. You've filled me up with too much information. What does it feel like when you go to a restaurant and you sit down and the service says, oh, I'm going to walk through tonight's specials. How many specials do you really want to hear about? Usually it's somewhere between 3 and 5. But what happens if they give you 10 specials? After about 5 or 6, we just tune out and you don't remember what it was that was number 1 or 2. And then everyone in your party's like, wait, what did you say again? And then they have to repeat the whole process. But typically your buyers tune out and they don't ask you to repeat any of the things that you've said. And they're almost feeling like, okay, that's enough. Stop with the specials. That's often what a sales call can be like if someone's talking too long. So how is this resonating with everyone that's out there today? Ever been in a restaurant and just had somebody? Here's another question that's come up. I over-explain everything. I feel like it's hurting me. And how do I stop? That's a fantastic question. So if you feel like you're explaining something and you've maybe gotten to a point of the awareness, there's one way that you could just say, does that make sense? Now, I encourage people not to say, does that make sense? Because it puts your audience in the mode of, well, it doesn't make sense, but I don't feel like saying it doesn't because I'm going to be a little embarrassed that I didn't follow. Instead, ask them, hey, how well is this resonating with you? And then it gives them a chance to go, I'm a little confused about this. Could you re-explain that? Or maybe even show me because I'm a visual learner. So over-explaining can happen because you're looking at slides and you're mousing over and you're doing a demo and you're not really paying attention to them and what they're paying attention to. Sometimes to just avoid the over-explaining, basically just ask them, what is it that you want to see right now, if anything, that would be a potential wow for you? It gets them to step back and say, oh, well, this is why I'm here. This is the wow. When you fulfill the wow, subconsciously, you're moving them from being afraid, being fearful, to moving toward, this is what I love. This is what I want to have happen. We always want to move people to that, from the emotional fear to the emotional desire state. That's when they're in this wondrous mode of, wait, I feel like I am talking to the right person. I feel like you might even have the thing that I want, which is then going to come into another question. And I'll pull this up for you to see. If you're asking the wrong questions, you can create this fire. Here's a good example. What is your budget? If you ask what is your budget really early in the process, that can be pushing off because they haven't even seen the value yet. And if you're showing too much, all of a sudden it feels really pushy and really fiery. And you can kind of see them step back and react, or their eyes just kind of bulge out or glaze over. When this happens too much, you'll start to see frowns, you'll start to see yawning. So the fiery sales breath, even though, I mean, how excited are you about your product? If you're really excited about it, unfortunately, that can come across as too much pressure, too much excitement. So you want to build pauses into your conversation and say, how is this even sounding to you? Really interesting? Not so interesting at all? So this is the person we're trying to connect with. Getting too excited can actually burn and singe everything that's all around him, and he doesn't want to get burnt. Instead, oh, and here's another question that's come in. Can people feel desperation through the phone? Yes. So if you're on the phone and you're speaking with someone, I'll just shut off the slides here. Imagine that you take a phone call and your eyes are completely closed. You can't see them. So what you're doing is you're listening to the tone and the pace of the other person. If someone's talking really fast and they keep going on and on and on, and then they say, boom, here's the price. Do you want to buy it? That's racing really far ahead, and that can sound desperate. It can sound needy, and it could sound like you're all about just closing the deal rather than, hey, is this something that even sounds remotely close to what you want? And then that's more of the move. I keep seeing these questions come in, so these are fantastic. How do I stop trying to prove myself on calls? If you've got something to prove and you want to just keep showing it and showing it, that kind of creates this mound of dirt that you're moving toward them. Hey, look at this. Look at that. Look at these other things. The proof is in the questions that you ask, not in what you show and say, because they want to say what it is that's on their mind and how they're feeling. So the proof piece comes out of once you establish the seeds of trust. I've heard this explained by Dan Sullivan, sort of the concept, and he's got this great book, 10x is easier than 2x. And in that, he talks about the concept of when you build trust on a call, each time you build trust, a gold coin goes in a jar. So imagine when you ask great questions, if somebody says, wow, that's an interesting question. I've never thought of that before. Okay, great. Listen to the answer. Ask more questions. All of a sudden, the car that you want to get to, which started off with half of the trust in the tank, starts moving toward full. If you don't ask great questions, it actually moves toward the empty. So thank you for asking that. So how's this resonating with folks out there? Like, raise your hand if you've ever just had these experiences where you've talked too much. You've not been sure that they haven't trusted you. And we're just like doing this call and you're throwing a lot of energy in it, but you're not getting a lot out. So I'm seeing hands raised. That's amazing. Thank you for that. And there's a lot more of these. So stay plugged into the end to really see how all of these things tie together for building trust in one sales call. So I will go back to some of these experiences that I've just seen. And I've seen these because I've been studying sales reps for years as an analyst and a product manager and a product marketing person. I think of myself as a trust anthropologist, which really means I'm looking at the buyer and seller and what's bringing them together. So you might be saying, geez, I just don't have enough sales calls. How do I get more sales calls with ideal people? It starts off with the $1 million message. Now, it's not the $1 million message that we write. It's the $1 million message that your buyer wishes you wrote about. And if you're wondering, well, what is a $1 million message? It doesn't come from AI. It doesn't come from us. A question actually comes from the mind of your buyer. Perfect example. I was working on a product launch at a SaaS company, and they had a big enterprise product, and they wanted to launch a newer SaaS product and make this transition. They were all set to do their entire awareness campaign and wrote all their emails. And I looked at them and I said, who's seen these in the outside world? Have any of our potential buyers seen it? Or are we just testing the messaging? And I paused them and I said, why don't we go to some of our existing customers and ask them, here's 5 topics or 10 topics. If you got 1,000 emails today, which of any of these would you actually click on? And if it's none, what's one that you would click on that would say, boom, that's fire for me. I want to go to the webinar. I want the tip sheet. I'll even talk to the sales rep. Unless we've honed in on a valid $1 million message, we could just be making stuff up, burning inboxes, and creating this, I don't even want to talk to that company message. So what's the value of getting people on your calls that are really feeling like they want to work with you? It starts off with your $1 million message. Here's another question that came firing in. Why do some reps naturally build trust faster than others? So from what I've observed, it comes down to the nature of the call. And a call is a conversation. The reps that build trust first don't talk a lot. In fact, the less you talk, the more you build trust. It's a crazy equation. So you might be thinking, wow, I've got to get my message out. I got to be exciting and I got to own the call and control it and then give the offer. And if I don't speak 80% of the time, I'm not doing my job. I've actually seen it to be the opposite. The less you talk, the more trust you create. Perfect example, you should really be talking about 20% of the time and then letting them talk 80%. Why? It's because you're giving them a safe space to share what it is they want. So if you ask someone, what do you want for a dinner? What do you want to eat? Rather than you just saying, hey, here's all the stuff we've got, you're giving them a chance to say, I really want to have this and I really want to have that. And this is what I'm in the mood for. They're getting a chance to say what they're in a mood for. This week, we just went through Cinco de Mayo. A lot of people probably went out for tacos, but there could be some people who are like, okay, I'm already tacoed out. I was getting excited about Cinco de Mayo last week. Now I'm in the mood for pizza. You really want to know what they're in the mood for. So why not ask them? And then people are punching in images of tacos and pizza and food. This is really a conversation about a meal. What is it that people want to eat? And then your job is to serve them that or say, we don't have that at this restaurant, go somewhere else. Another great question that came in, and can you pop that back up? Can bad sales habits ruin relationships outside of business too? I want to know why you're asking that, but here I'll take sort of a look at it. Ever had that friend that gives you a lot of advice and seems to just have a strong opinion about what it is you should do with your life or where things are going wrong? That could be an example of not creating trust in a situation and saying, they never asked me if I wanted to hear those insights and advice. And it can create this wall between you and create this almost like repelling of magnets away. So, yes, sometimes when people don't read the room and they can't really sense the emotion of what's going on, it can repel others. So, whatever you do in your personal life and the connections that you build can also affect your relational life on sales calls. Wow, these are firing in. I love them. How do I sense emotions more? There's two sets of emotions. There's yours and then there's theirs. So if we're talking about their emotions, we're looking in at the eyes and the face. How many like dropped chins do you get versus how many yawns? When you're not so focused on your slides and your demo, you can really focus in on their emotions. What's getting them excited versus not. Because they're showing you what's going on. And if you let go of all the excitement about what you're going to ask next, then you can sense where they're at. And you're in the flow of the emotions. And you're able to go, hey, which of those things that I just said made you feel excited? What made you feel a little frustrated? And a few months back, I was talking to someone that had hired some sales coaches and some digital marketing agencies and folks running ad campaigns. And I said, so how's that been going? He's like, oh man, they pushed hard for me to buy this and then buy that and then run all these ads. I said, well, so what have you gotten out of it? And he's like, oh, it's actually really been frustrating. I've only gotten 0. Okay, well, what have you spent? Over 75,000 and over 20,000 in ad spend. And then I asked, okay, so how much longer do you want to be frustrated about this versus what's the value of having a sense of relief that you're no longer committing good money after bad, meaning you've got a sunk cost investment. You're like, all right, I really want this to work. I've already put 70 into it. If I just put another 5 or 10, maybe I'll hit the jackpot. Excellent questions. And when you have others, keep firing them in. How do I know if I actually killed a sales deal? How do I know if I've killed it? Well, first, the call is alive as long as you're on the conversation with them, on the phone or on a Zoom. You always have a chance to ask questions and listen. I just had one today where someone said, I'm feeling like I should think about this. And I want to meet with you again. And I said, well, let's pause. What is it that really would be a wow for you? And he came back with, I really feel like I want to talk with some customers of yours and understand their experiences. I said, okay, well, here's one that went from a certain amount of revenue a month, and he basically almost 10x'd his revenue in about a year. And he's like, okay, is that typical? And I said, well, it depends on your capacity to do your side of the equation. Like, how good are you to coach? And so the question really becomes, how long can I keep this conversation going, or do I need to just end it? You always have a chance to serve during the call. And who's doing the serving and who's doing the eating? Your buyers are always consuming. You're giving them what they want to eat. It's like your a server in the restaurant. Hey, how is this meal going? Have you ever eaten something in a restaurant and said, it's not the best? And then consider, well, maybe I'll send it back to the kitchen because you found it was really cold, it was undercooked. That's a chance. The server's genuinely going, hey, is everything great here? Or is there something I can really help with? They're genuinely knowing or wanting to know whether you're helping. Because what happens at the end of the night? They either get a nice 20, 30, maybe even 40% tip if they did crazy amount of good. But what happens if they didn't do well? Tips could be 15, 10, or 0. And that's akin to creating trust on a sales call. If you don't create the trust, you don't get the commission, which is really the tip. So definitely think about your favorite server that you've ever had in a restaurant, what you love about the experience, and why you keep going back. Because going back is like joining the second sales call. Wow, I want to go back. They know what I want. In fact, they get me and I trust them because they'll make it the right way. I must be hungry because I'm talking a lot about food. Speaking of food, a sales call is like leading a hike. Ever been on a hike before and an adventure and then realized, I didn't bring the right jacket. I didn't bring enough water. I didn't bring enough snacks. The leader of the hike is really the salesperson. And the salesperson, their job is to make sure everybody brought food and water and the right clothes. And is this really where you want to go today? Today's hike is to get to the top of this mountain. How does that sound? Okay, that sounds pretty good. But why are they there? Why do they want to get to the destination? And as you're going through the sales call, how's it going? Do we need to take a break? If you're going too fast in your conversation and showing too much or talking too much, that's when somebody starts to trail behind you and they're not following. And they're actually wanting to maybe walk back home and be done with the hike. But why do they keep hiking? Well, they want to pretend like they're interested. So they'll keep going and giving it their best effort. A sales conversation is not supposed to feel like effort to your buyer. They're supposed to be going, wow, this feels great. I'm hiking at my own pace. They know I've got my water and my snacks and I'm comfortable. I've got the right outfit on. So when you're having a conversation with someone, check back in, see if they're really with you. And if they're far back, walk back to them and say, hey, where did things get lost? What's something that you really want to see right now that would be amazing? Or is this just a no-go? Should we just end it now? What does that show to them? It shows that you care more about them than your commission. That's another trust move. Can trust be rebuilt after it's broken on a call? That's a question that just came in. Yes, it can be rebuilt, but it means it needs some acknowledgement. Perfect example. I was on a call and a conversation recently with someone, and they said, this doesn't feel like what I wanted. Okay. And I said, well, in our last conversation, you had said this was really important to you. Is that really important to you, or has something else come up? And that gave them a chance to go, well, I kind of thought we were going to be talking about this. It gives you a chance to kind of redirect the conversation and say, this is about where you want to go. And so there's always an opportunity, if you feel like things aren't going great, to go, hey, what would make this better for you? And that's what happened in that other conversation, where the other gentleman that I talked to today just said, I don't need to think about it anymore. I know this is really valuable, and I want to have that next conversation. So how to get prospects to take action? It's simply asking them, what would be a wow proposal? That if it was right in front of you, would go, I'd be an idiot not to say yes. Unless it's a wow, how many other things do they have that's on their list of things to do that day? So it's having them go, this is a wow, this is a yes, this is enough for me to bring in this other teammate to look at what's going on. Because if it's not a wow for them, why would they bring in someone else to see something that's good or average? Another question that sometimes comes up is, how do I just know when they're not agreeing with me? How do I know when I've lost them? Sometimes they're looking away. Sometimes they're looking down. Sometimes you just see the disappointment or some sort of issue going on. When you take all of their language in, then you can kind of see what's going on. And a good example is they're kind of doing stuff like this, but it's like really subtle. If they're not nodding their heads in a way that seems genuine, there's a disconnect there. So you want to address that and go, I want to be sure we're really talking about the things that really matter to you. What is it that really matters to you? And other questions come in is, what if I feel, or why do I feel drained after sales calls lately? Let's go back to the other piece. What percentage of the time are you really talking on a call? Like 80-20. Chances are, if you're talking more than 20-30% of the time, you're pushing too hard. You're talking too much. And at the end of the day, how does that feel to have gone through like 8, 9, or 10 calls? And then you're trying to send all the follow-up information and trying to send just following up messages. That's exhausting. I mean, how does it feel to you to go through anything more than 6 calls a day? It's very tiring. And we as humans all need a chance to recharge. So I would say to you, what are you doing to recharge during the day? Get out, walk around, eat something, get some fresh air outside, and block up your calendar in a way that you have breaks between calls and you have a chance to actually look at the background and the persona of who you're talking to and being prepared. Recently, I saw someone jump on a call. They recorded it and they gave it to me afterwards as a study. And I did a replay of it. And I asked, well, what was that deal worth? Because he hadn't booked a call after the call. He's like, well, that deal was worth $5 million. Okay. How well do you think you did? He's like, oh, I kind of messed up. I wasn't prepared, which I saw. And then my questions weren't good. And I didn't realize at the end until they had 5 million to spend. And I asked, well, what was the commission on that? And he said, that was 300,000 commission. I was like, oh, wow. Is that how you really want to be on a $300,000 commission call? And he's like, oh, you're right. I'm just going from call to call to call, and I'm like chasing cats. So if you feel like you're chasing cats and you feel exhausted, it's probably because your process and the psychology of how you sell is maybe the opposite. The biggest turnoff in sales processes is someone that just jumps right to it. Let me show you the slides. Imagine just walking to a store and someone says, hey, what do you think about this jacket? You want to put it on? That's typically your chance to just walk out of the store and say, hey, I'm sorry, I think I walked into the wrong store. When people are on sales calls, they often don't voice that they've just lost trust. But let me show you the slides without asking or stating, I've got some things to show today, but I don't want to show anything that you're not genuinely interested in. And I'm not here to pitch you. How does that change this sign that's on the street? It changes from no entry to I'm starting to trust you. Come this way. What makes the best sales opener? The best sales opener is giving them fully freedom and space to just say why they're there. I'm here to listen to you today. I want to know why you joined and what would be a great outcome for you today. Whoa, you just gave them full space and reign over what it is they want to have happen. How's that feel? Almost feels like a birthday party when everyone's there celebrating you and going forward. How do I get my team to stop sounding robotic? Okay, do you have a sales script? Do you have a demo script? Have you trained your team to the sales script and the demo script? Are there a low number of people showing up for the second call? That's what's happening from the robotic piece. It's because there's a trained process of what to follow. So the way to stop that is actually just shut off the script, shut off the slides, almost delete all that, or just freeze it and say, okay, hey, why are we here today? How can I help? And be human. That gets rid of the robotic feeling, because all of a sudden there's a pattern interrupt. You're not like the other 99 reps that are like, let me show you the slides. Here's today's demo. I'll give you 3 minutes at the end for questions. Whoa, that's robotic. And about 87%, up to 87% of sales reps follow this robotic scripted, let me just get through my agenda. Whose sales call is it in the first place? It's a buying call, not a selling call. They're joining to buy. They're joining to solve a problem. How fun is it to buy something? How fun is it to be sold? The same concept. What is your big dream in the next year? What do you want to have happen in your life? Maybe it's to finish that book. Maybe it's to have the sales team hit quota for once. Maybe it's to fly to Boston and surprise your parents, knock on the door and say, you know what? I had an amazing sales week and month, and I'm here. I took some time off and I'm with you. What is the dream of the person that's joined the call? What is the career boost for them by solving this problem? What What's the hero that they want to be in their world? So why not ask them, why'd you join? It's amazing when you ask an awesome question. Not amazing to yourself, it's amazing to them. That creates trust. I learned this one by seeing an incredible sales trainer in my life talk about the wow. And she said the wow shows the path to the how. How can I get this product? So typically there's an elevator pitch statement that when you say something, it creates this wow reaction. If you have a product that literally, and this was the example, it was a wearable life vest product that when it's on a patient, it can detect a heart arrhythmia and actually give them a shock and correct their heartbeat so that they don't go into an arrest. And that product actually at that time saved one life a day. Wow, that's amazing. So if you know the wow of your product and solution, it's okay to say it, but it needs to be quick. And if you don't know what it is that they have as the purpose for the call, just say, hey, what would be a wow for you today? Something that would really open your eyes. If you have it, show it. If you don't, maybe show them where they can get it or and ask another question. Well, what would be another wow? We don't do that. In fact, I can connect you with someone that does that. What might be another area where you're feeling some pressure in your business and there's something that's just been frustrating? You're looking for the wow. This is kind of our wrap-up piece. When you don't build trust, at any point in the process, your buyer can go panic. They hit the panic button. The panic button gets triggered by the subconscious mind. And then the conscious mind goes, stop, stop. So there's a conversation going on in the person's head. So they're having a chat back and forth, as well as trying to listen to you. So if there's 3 conversations going on, plus yours, that's 4 voices. This is why you don't want to talk more than 20% of the time. You want them to talk it out, both their internal voice and their external voice, and let them ask questions. And let them just speak it out. So if we recap this, building trust in one sales call happens when you create space, you let them speak, and then you essentially give them the floor. It creates this feeling that you're not salesy and pushy. You don't even need the deal. In fact, you're more curious about what their issues are than you solving your issue of actually closing the deal. I want to open it up for any questions and reactions because I've seen tons of questions and reactions that have come in, which is fantastic. What is a sales buzzword that instantly makes you cringe? Well, I've mentioned a few of these. And the first one that really makes me cringe is as soon as somebody just throws the price out without there being a question. Hey, this product's going to cost you X amount, and here's all our packages. Whoa, what if the buyer didn't even want to know about the package yet? What if they were still stuck at, what can you do for me, or can you solve this problem, or you haven't created trust? So throwing the price out really fast is an instant cringe. And I'll go back to the other ones as well as a refresher. Let me show you the slides. Does this make sense? These are robotic things that happen. And those are the robotic things that push people away. I just saw another question come up. What's worse, a prospect ghosting you or saying circle back next quarter? Man, the ghost is worse. And here's why. It means They felt so disrespected that they didn't even feel like they could send a note that says, hey, this isn't a fit for me now. I felt like you were too salesy and we're just not aligned. Now, how often does that happen? Rare. But that's what they're thinking is, I don't even want to give this person the time of day. When you do genuinely build trust and someone wants to ghost you, but it's really not a ghost, they're saying, oh my gosh, this just happened at my house and it's crazy. I've got to rebook. Well, that's when they care enough about you and they saw the value of the trust and they go, hey, can we meet tomorrow instead? That means they really care about you. The circle back piece, I don't know. You got to really figure out what that means. Well, why are you wanting to circle back in a month? Like, what difference does that even make on your end? Oh, well, our fiscal year ends at the end of June, and in July we get a new budget. Oh, okay. So you're saying you've already exhausted the year-end funds and you don't have to do like a use it or lose it situation? Oh, they might go, you're right. We do have a little bit left in the budget. Could we get started with you and sort of do a phase one that's a less amount, and then we can continue in the new year? You see how that just popped up and we didn't even know about it? The circle back piece, you really want to understand, what does that mean? Say, a lot of people say circle back, but what does that mean? Are you just being polite and you're saying, I don't want to talk to you again? What's one sales tactic that should be honestly illegal at this point? You guys are coming up with some great questions. I think the biggest thing is asking for the deal before you've actually got trust. Sometimes people say you got to follow the method of always be closing. I always think of it as always be listening. And if you're not listening, you're not paying attention. And if you're not paying attention to them, they're going to feel like, why would I trust this rep? Why would I trust this company? They're not listening to me. And they're always trying to sell me something. So it should be illegal to always be closing. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. It means the rep isn't focused. Well, I would argue if you're talking too much and you're pushing, you're not focused on their needs. You're focused on yours. And there's times when I'll say during a call, it's okay to say, stop me here. This isn't a fit. You're too salesy. What's the weirdest place you've ever taken a sales call from? The weirdest place actually was on a mountain bike ride. I was riding in the Boston area on a mountain bike, and a call came in, and I thought, I haven't heard from this person in a while. It's kind of shocking that they're calling. All right, let me pull over, catch my breath, and take the call. And sometimes it's just being in the moment and receiving what comes to you. And they can come from anywhere at any time. And it's just being open to it. Here's another question. What's the most unhinged thing a prospect has ever said to you? There's times when people have said questions related to it's almost like a hidden question, and they're just saying, what if this doesn't work? And they're kind of just being flat out, what if they're not doing their part? And this is the question I really want to know about is, hey, what's it like to work with you? Because if they're throwing that up in the beginning, it's like, how committed are you to this? because you've already started the journey of saying, I don't know if this is going to work. Here's another one. What's your biggest why did I say that moment on a call? I'd say in the early days of doing sales and going on a path and a method that I've seen from others is, I'd say just lowering the price without them even asking. That can be a really difficult situation because you don't even know how they feel about it. And that can all of a sudden create less and less value. And let's say the price of something is $20,000 and you lay it out there and you're getting silence. It's like, but if you do it today, it's only 15,000. In fact, we could just break it up into a bunch of payments. And if you just keep going on, you're almost like decreasing the value of what you've got. So there can be a lot of early on mistakes in the sales process by not even knowing what you're doing. What's the funniest sales advice that you've ever heard that absolutely does not work? Sometimes people have said, just try to be funny and try to make them your friend first, like you're kind of like your backyard barbecue buddy. And I take sales seriously because I'm building trust with someone, and pretending that they're going to like the jokes and just pushing really hard on that, it's almost like a no-go because you're assuming that you're already at this place. Now, I absolutely believe that clients you can get great friendships with and great trust, but assuming that you can just be funny, I don't know. I question that. I'm super impressed with these questions today, and it goes to show that we're all learning different things about building trust. Sometimes it's not what we've ever seen or heard, and sometimes we don't even see the process of how it plays out. I want to thank all of you for joining today. If you have any questions about this, you can reach out by going to closewith1.com, texting, and just going to the description in this live session. You'll see all my contact information. Thank you for joining today and asking all these fantastic calls. Remember, build trust, listen hard, and serve well. Thank you for joining.